In the top stories, government officials attend grand reopening of Ramada Hotel. Vaccine mandate credited with identifying other illnesses, and Germany to impose lockdown on unvaccinated. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Friday, the 3rd of December 2021. I'm Jason Davis. Nationally, Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris was among specially invited guests participating in the grand opening of the Ramada Hotel on the outskirts of St. Paul's on Thursday. According to a statement out of government headquarters, the resort is expected to significantly improve the hotel room stock in the Federation at a time when the tourism sector is rebounding. Prime Minister Harris was joined by cabinet colleagues, the Honorable Akila Byron Nisbet, Honorable John L. Powell, the Honorable Eugene Hamilton, and the Honorable Wendy Phipps. We'll have full details on the opening ceremony in tonight's newscast. More than 600 persons have received booster shots since the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis rolled out its COVID-19 booster program in early November for persons who qualify. That's according to Medical Chief of Staff at the Joseph N. France General Hospital, Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, during this week's edition of the National Emergency Operations Center COVID-19 briefing. He said, quote, "About 50 plus persons have been coming forward per day since we started administering the boosters." Dr. Wilkinson noted that while adults are utilizing the extra protection, it's also important to protect the vast majority of children between 12 and 17 with the vaccine that was made available for them. He said, quote, "A COVID-19 booster shot is an additional dose of the vaccine given after the protection provided by the original shots has begun to decrease over time. The booster is therefore designed to help people maintain their level of immunity for longer," end quote. He noted that every adult 18 and over should get a booster, adding that the, quote, "oldest should make it a priority as they are the ones most likely to have pre-existing conditions and to have the worst outcome if infected with COVID-19, end quote. Once eligible, a booster can be taken 6 months after the second dose of the vaccine is administered. The Garden of Rebirth has won the Energy Globe National Award for reducing carbon footprint by transforming a center for victims of domestic violence to a green living space. The Garden of Rebirth, founded by Etsu Bradshaw Keynes in 2015, is a non-governmental organization that's committed to providing shelter and support to women and children who are survivors of gender-based violence. The Energy Globe Award is an environmental award honoring the best solutions for current energy and climate changes. We now move to news on the regional scene. The Antigua and Barbuda's vaccine mandates have been credited for possibly saving the lives of some individuals by identifying chronic diseases as well as living with HIV/AIDS. The revelation came from HIV/AIDS clinical care coordinator Dr. Maria Pereira during an interview with ABS's Kim Emmanuel Baird.
Who would have thought a vaccine mandate would prevent a person from developing diabetes or hypertension? Well, according to clinical care coordinator for HIV and AIDS, the vaccine mandate has encouraged patients to return to clinic care only to discover they need immediate treatment.
We not only assess their HIV status, but we also look at their cholesterol, their sugar, their blood pressure. And in some instances, we have found where some persons, they have become borderline diabetic, their pressure has increased, their cholesterol has increased. So in a way, the government has saved their life because instead of becoming diabetic in a few years' time or fully blown hypertensive, we can start the treatment now.
Dr. Pereira says some clients need to have one-on-one sessions, while other patients' jobs hinder them from getting medication and care, so their services had to be tailored.
And we were able to give our patients the medications as they requested. Another area that we found is that some persons became more isolated, they felt more lonely, and then they may have developed symptoms of depression and sadness and hopelessness. So in these cases, we had to really have a strong team.
Meanwhile, over the past 40 years, Dr. Pereira explains she has also noticed a significant decrease in stigma and discrimination against those living with HIV and AIDS. They receive needed support from their family and friends, and the public is more empathetic.
Back in the 80s, when HIV and AIDS came on the scene, people didn't have a lot of knowledge, they didn't have a lot of education. So persons who were afflicted were treated badly. They may have been put out of their families. They had to really have a hard time. But these days, I've seen a distinct elimination or reduction in stigma and discrimination.
This, Dr. Pereira says, makes her job more rewarding. For ABS News, this is Kim Emanuel.
Students in Jamaica are soon to return to face-to-face learning. The Education Minister made an announcement in Parliament recently. TVJ with this report.
More primary schools are expected to reopen soon following Cabinet's approval, allowing students from larger institutions to return to face-to-face classes. Education Minister Favour Williams says it's part of the phased reopening of school.
A total of 383 primary schools are approved for the next phase of face-to-face learning. As I said, these schools are our larger primary schools, some with their enrollment above 630, while others are occupying 80% or more of their capacity and will account for some 164,000 students.
Earlier in November, a select number of primary and infant schools were allowed to reopen after more than 18 months in the virtual classroom. The Ministry of Education says in the first week, schools saw a 66% attendance rate, while in week 2, 80% of students were back in the physical classroom. Minister Williams further reported that there were 3 confirmed cases of the coronavirus among students and at least 2 suspected cases among staff. High schools that have met the 65% vaccination rate requirement have also been given the green light to resume face-to-face classes.
Several of our high schools have reported that they have attained or are very close to attaining the 65% vaccination rate. And just to give you an example, some of these schools are Ardennes High, St. George's College, York Castle High, Campion College, St. Andrew High School for Girls, Glenmuir, Denby, Knox College, and Kingston College.
The parliamentary opposition welcomed the announcement, citing that the low transmission rate is because of the safe reopening of schools. However, there is worry about high school students who may not be able to return to school physically because of the low vaccine take-up.
The numbers in terms of transmission were fairly low and they were treated within the protocols. And I'm pleased to see that because that's what the data suggests. And the experience in doing this really vindicates the logical, practical decision that you had taken. I know that when we started talking about that, many persons thought that we were irresponsible, but I'm pleased to see where we are.
The schools are expected to reopen after consultations with parents. Jamila Maitland, TVJ News.
Internationally, German Chancellor Angela Merkel has said that people who are not vaccinated will be excluded from non-essential shops, cultural and recreational venues, and Parliament will consider a general vaccine mandate that would come into force from February. Al Jazeera's Andrew Simmons reports on the situation across Europe.
In less than a week, the Omicron variant has swept the globe with more uncertainty about COVID. In many countries, especially in Europe, new restrictions were being introduced anyway, with the winter surge in Delta variant infections. Germany is the latest to announce new measures. Signs like these, vaccinate, immunized, is the way this country and others are now heading. The unvaccinated are now barred from access to all but essential businesses, such as grocery stores and pharmacies. Angela Merkel says new stricter measures are essential in a situation she finds depressing.
To be quite honest, the fact that we are now in the middle of such a strong fourth wave does not make me happy. It depresses me, especially when I look at certain regions.
In France, where the health service is struggling with record numbers of COVID infections, The government's scientific advisor believes the Omicron variant will be dominant within a matter of weeks.
Le vrai ennemi, c'est la 5e vague avec le variant.
The real enemy is the 5th wave with the Delta variant. There will be some time before the Omicron variant establishes itself in France and in Europe in general. We estimate it to be at the beginning of 2022 or at the end of January.
In the UK, where booster jabs will be available to anyone over 18, the arrival of the Omicron variant has led to a clamour for vaccinations.
We're starting to see people who I think are probably anxious about the new variant that's been come across, and we've started to get people coming for their first and second jabs that they could have possibly had months ago.
The UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson himself got his booster on Thursday. In Germany, the government will also consider compulsory vaccinations. And as people put their hopes in jabs being able to ward off Omicron, something that scientists are still unsure about, there's a chilling prediction from the European Union's Public Health Agency. It says that within a few months, the Omicron variant could be causing more than half of COVID infections in the EU. And from the Norwegian capital Oslo, another warning. More than 50 people have been infected with the Omicron variant at a Christmas party in a restaurant. The government says they were all vaccinated. Andrew Simmons, Al Jazeera.
And now for the weather. Current conditions are partly cloudy skies. The temperature is 29 degrees Celsius or 84 degrees Fahrenheit. Seas are moderate with waves not exceeding 5 feet. Winds are east at 15 to 26 kilometers per hour or 9 to 16 miles per hour with lighter spells overnight. Weather today will be partly sunny with a 40% or moderate chance of brief passing showers. Tonight will be fair to partly cloudy with a 40% or moderate chance of brief passing showers, mainly after midnight. Sunset today will be at 5:35 p.m., sunrise tomorrow at 6:24 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jason Davis.